Welcome back to the Superhuman Resilience Project. My name's Kara, I'm your host, and today I'm telling you we're so lucky to have with us Angie Gabel. Angie is a licensed clinical social worker in both Kansas and Montana with over 30 years of experience and has been working with our military population since 2012. And Angie, thank you for being here with us today. I'm so excited to hear about things from a different perspective. So far, we've been pretty much concentrating on the survivor perspective.
Yeah,
And now I want to look at it from the outside in and what that looks like. So, uh,
absolutely.
can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Angie?
Sure, Kara. So I am originally from Topeka, Kansas, where I am back and working. Prior to working with the military, I worked within the foster care system. So I have been licensed as a social worker since 1996. So my first duty station with the military was at Fort Riley. So active duty Army. And then I was chosen to go over to Germany and work with active duty Air Force. So I was stationed at Ramstein and lived in Landstuhl. And then from there, have been on other active duty bases, and now working with the Guard side.
Well, I know I can't thank you enough for what you do. I wish it was something that would have been in place when I was in the service. It would
Yeah.
have been a fantastic thing. I know that it's grown a lot since I've left the service. That was a long time ago. We won't even go into that.
Yeah.
Uh, I was in 1994, I think, when I got out of
Holy cow.
the service.
Yeah.
So, how do you think the military culture shapes the way service members talk about or even avoid talking about mental health even today?
Sure. So when I started working with the military in 2012, coming to a clinician like myself was not what's the word I'm looking for? Only if you were in dire straits or if your commander like command directed you to go to therapy. Now since then, it I have seen a pivotal twist with regards to because of suicide rates have increased over the years and just the fact of normalizing going to mental health has really pivoted, as well as just me being able to market myself within different populations, knowing that I can speak with their lingo if need to. I always tell my service members, I do not get offended over anything. So any four-letter word that you need to drop, I will drop it with the best of them.
That's awesome because I think it means a lot when people are met where they're at. It's part of your daily life because so much of it just sucks
Yeah,
and it's it's you're doing what you know you want to do and you're doing what your morals have taught you you want to do, and
yeah,
yet some of it just really is a pain in the ass, you know.
yeah.
So,
It's
so yeah,
hard.
I'm glad to hear that. What themes or patterns do you see most often in the veterans that you support now?
So, really, the themes that I continue to see over the years, and I also have a private practice that I do on the side, and volunteer for different veteran associations and things like that, because just the military is so incredibly close to my heart professionally and personally. And so some of the trends that I continue to see, and no matter what population I am working with and or socializing with, is communication barriers, not being able to fully be transparent with their loved ones, which then impacts marriages, relationships, the rapid deployments that we have seen over the years. Our soldiers and airmen and Marines, whatever service capacity they are at, that sometimes they get home and they no longer get back into a rhythm, and then it's just that rapid redeployment, the job stress, just kind of that numbing where it's like we're going back out the door. And just the buy-in, I think sometimes with regards to family members who may not have had any type of military experience in their family and don't know what to ask the questions, so they don't. Um, and then divorce rates are extremely high with regards to active duty, guard side, and our veteran population.
Now, I know it's gotten a lot better about them having the support that they need, but what do you think still makes it so difficult for veterans and active duty members to reach out for that support?
I think we still have a long ways to go with regards to access to care. And what I have found is, being a civilian trying to help my military personnel, if I don't even know what number within a system to call or trying to figure out a system, and I'm not in crisis. And so to be able to have that access, quick numbers, and then once you get into a system, the timeline that it takes to get to a provider and or medication management, just the rigmarole, and I think just the hoops that so many of our veterans have to jump through when they finally decide, I'm just tired of being tired. And then it's more hoops, or phone calls aren't returned, or this, that, and the third. They just give up and they're like, never mind, I'll figure it out on my own. And they don't. They don't.
Wow. Well, is there something you think we could do to make that better?
I I think just more personnel with regards to the love of the job and the love of the military, and just like a one access, if I lived in a perfect world and I could be in control of it, it's just one access, one building, just a team of our veterans, active duty, whatever status you are in, to be able to call one number and or one door, and that one door then leads you into a full assessment to decide what exactly the needs are that you have and
Well,
your family. It absolutely involving the dependents with regards to care.
that is a very good point that you bring up because I know, having worked for the state and retired from the state of Missouri, we had an employee assistance program that also involved our dependents. So it's doable. It's very doable. And I know a lot of people that took advantage of that. I took advantage of it. And I also referred a lot of people to it. And it was you called a number and you spoke to somebody immediately, even
Yes.
if you weren't in crisis,
Yes.
over the phone. And then usually within 24 to 48 hours, you had an appointment somewhere if that was necessary. It was really a really good setup. So I know it is due, and I'm glad to hear that I'm hoping that that's the way they're trying to move.
Yes, I do too.
How do you think the stigma and along with the training or expectations of toughness influence their willingness to open up? Because I know when I went through basic training, it's like, what makes the grass grow? And our response was, blood makes the grass grow. And we were literally being trained
Yeah.
that it was okay, that the violence was okay. And I completely 100% get that it's a necessity. But how do you think that the training and those expectations of toughness influence people in their willingness to open up and avoid,
Oh,
you know?
Kara, 100%, like that war fighter mentality with regards to, yes, from basic on, you are taught to kill or be killed. Just that adrenaline rush, and so much, I am such a junkie when it comes to like research, and the brain absolutely fascinates me. And so listening to as many podcasts, reading books, research that I can to know how this works, and it's all intertwined. And when our military personnel are on such a cortisol or an adrenaline rush for so long, your body gets used to it, or that war fighting mentality. And then we still, I think, as helpers and systems, again, systems of care, we do not do a good job of transitioning our military personnel into civilian world. And that's what I find out on my personal side and my professional side. You know, Kara, I'm from a military family. So my daddy served in the Navy. He was in the Korean conflict, and several uncles and cousins. And, you know, I was just always around military. And one of my uncles was a full bird in the Air Force. And so he was a wing commander at several different duty stations and in the Vietnam War. And several other uncles and cousins too served in any type other capacities. And what I found out, you know, they weren't even transitioning to the civilian world has always, I think, been an issue. As we've seen, you know, the VA was, but they're slowly dying, but the VA was full of Vietnam vets because transitioning back how they were treated when they came home, period, end dot. But then, alcoholism, drug addiction. Okay, well, one day you wear a uniform for 20, 30 plus years, you are taught when to get up, what to sleep, what to wear, hair color for, you know, females, nail color, all sorts of things. And then the next day you are retired. And what I have found is just the civilian world. A lot of people just don't get it if they have never served or known someone who served. Frankly, you know, if you're retiring as a higher enlisted full bird, and then you try to get a job on the civilian side, they don't give a shit what your rank was, period. And so you start off at ground zero. And so just, I think what we take advantage of, just, you know, hey, you have a closet full of clothes, but yet, what do I wear? You know, and there was times when I was in Montana working, and a recent female veteran was sitting next to me, and we were getting pedicures, and she was so spun up with regards to what colors she could choose. And I was like, well, why is, and she was like, well, I just retired, you know, 20 some years. I was told, you know, what color nail polish. And I was like, girl, let's go. What color you want? You want pink? You want red? Like, you know, some of the things that the civilian side takes for granted, and they have choices, and their choices can be so incredibly anxiety driven for them. And so they shut down and they isolate and they stay within themselves. And the only thing they have is this 24/7 of their thoughts. Or, you know, maybe some of their brothers and sisters in arms are still serving, and they want to know the information, but they can't know the information. And it's, you know, when you're just taught to just go, 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 and then you're done. Thank you for your service.
I completely get that because having come out of the military and gone straight into working for the state of Missouri and working in within the criminal justice field, because I worked with the Department of Corrections for nearly 3 decades, and I was in uniform. That uniform was a big part of my identity, you know. And even when I retired 3 years ago, I still have trouble picking out an outfit. I still struggle with that exact thing that you just said. They had a strict rule of how you could wear your hair, what color your
Yes.
hair could be. They had all
Yes.
these things. I mean, now it doesn't matter. I'm just gray now, but
Yeah.
it, it's it's a hard thing to face that you have all these choices, and then suddenly you're like, wait a minute, who am I supposed to be?
Yeah.
Because you've become part of the job for so long. That uniform kind of absorbs you who you are. Yeah, that makes total sense. When you're talking to people, and I've talked with you a few times now, and it's so easy to talk to you, which is why I was so excited when you said you would do the show. when you talk to people, what helps you build that trust with someone who's been conditioned to push through things? Because I think a lot of people who may be family members, even who are listening, might be like, how do I get through? How do I make it safe for them? So, how do you do that?
Yeah. You know, ever since I was little, Kara, I call it my Tom Bodette light. Like it never shuts off. And like my aura around me, I think I was just put on this earth to be a helper. That's what I truly believe. And so for so many years, people have just walked up to me and just feel so comfortable in starting to share their stories, no matter where I'm at. And so I think, starting to work with the military back in 2012, you can't see it now with what I'm wearing, but like I have a full sleeve tattoo on this side, tattoos over here. I have piercings. I have funky hair. I dress, hippie, and I love loud colors. And I just love the energy and the aura. And so I think a lot of that is, I think it's just such a gift for me that people do feel comfortable in talking to me, because I hope they see that there is zero judgment. And I am also fascinated by people's stories, and I think we are all put on this earth for a reason. And I love to hear people's journeys in life. And also, I think with the military, and I tell them, from Jump Street, like zero judgment. My life has not been perfect either. No, I don't get offended. And the fact that you can drop the F bomb or whatever you need to, it's almost like, huh, like you can literally see just people like that weight, the weight of the world and or the weight of years of trauma just starts to unpack. And to me, it's just such a gift.
That's awesome. And your aura is absolutely right, because I was immediately the first time I met you, I was immediately like, I think I could tell you anything,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
that doesn't happen with me. It's very
Oh,
hard for me to talk about me personally
yeah.
with people. I've gotten better at it because of what I'm doing now with this business, but it's definitely something that it was a struggle for me, and it is still a struggle for me. But when you meet that one person that just like totally makes you feel safe,
Yeah.
that is incredible. And I hope you know how incredible that gift is.
Well,
it's,
I
it is
appreciate that. Thank you.
it's a true gift to the people who need that. So when we're talking about those same people, what are the early signs of struggle that you wish families or leaders or peers recognized sooner
Yeah.
within people?
What I call that short fuse, that uh, they get irritated easily, that shock, that fight or flight or freeze instinct, their sleep is impacted, eating, hygiene, just maybe the movies or the different situations that they're looking at and or sharing, or they isolate, or just that overall change in behavior to really be able to tap into. Like, I know when my life partner, Mark, is not in a good place, he will send me a million reels on Instagram. And so I'm like, oh my God, Lord Jesus. Like, when I start seeing all of the notifications, I'm like, not today, hun. So then I'll just reach out and be like, we doing good? Like, because I'm not going to watch those 20 reels you just sent me in the last 10 minutes kind of mentality. Or, when he isolates because he still lives in Montana, I know that, just not, he's not in a right frame of mind. And so I'm like, I'm here, just know that. And it can be frustrating for a family member to hear maybe some same stories over and over again. But a lot of times, our military personnel do not share the warrior stories, the deployment stories, because they do not want to share that hurt and that pain and that decision that they had to do onto the loved ones. So they bottle that up and either save it for their battle buddies when they get together, or they save it up for their therapist, or they just stay in here.
Yeah, I know it's really hard to know what you can tell people. I can remember I had two brothers that started working in the same institution I started working at, but much later in my career, where I was getting closer to retirement, they were both starting with the Department of Corrections. And they ran into a lot of the people that I worked with when I first started. And they're like, oh, gosh, you're Sergeant Harms's brothers, and or do you know her? They're like, yeah, that's my sister, and they would be talking, and they would end up telling my mother all these things that I never said, the things that happened that I wouldn't talk about because I knew how frightened my mom was that I was going to go to work in a prison, and granted the stories always get blown way out of proportion, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I get that it's hard for them to talk about those particular things because then it makes it too real. If you have to tell your
Yes.
family about it, your close friends about it, then you're making it too real
Yeah.
because now if you're going to be willing to worry them, then you feel like you must be overly worried yourself.
Correct.
So that's a long way to say that, but
Yeah. Well, and to add on to that, Kara, real quick, is then also you are opening yourself up for that fear of judgment and and moral injury. That's been the buzzword for several years, but it's so true. It's, that when you do start telling some of those stories and you see people's nonverbals and or you what? That fear of judgment. And what I will tell all of my military personnel, it's just like, you did a job, you were told and instructed and commanded to do a job, and that job had consequences.
yeah, I think we often hear people making judgments about what the military does, what
Yeah.
law enforcement does, what
Yeah.
different first responders have to do. But what they don't realize, if they've never been in that situation, they don't realize that you have a portion of a split second to make a
Yes.
decision that will define your future.
Correct.
And most of those decisions, when you're making them that fast, are life or death type
Yes.
situations.
Yes.
And they're like, "Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad." But the thing is it actually, yes, it is that bad. That things happen, and there are things I can't even sit here right now and just talk about because not because I couldn't share them with you because I don't want to share them with the audience and re-traumatize somebody.
Yeah.
But it's the way it works. I mean, people don't give credit to that. Yes, we're trained to do a job. We're absolutely trained to do a job. That doesn't mean that we don't live with the consequences of what we do in that job.
Correct. And
And
it's forever tattooed up here.
exactly. And for someone to go, you did what?
Yeah.
Is damaging to those
Yes.
people. Instead
Yes.
of just saying, I'm sorry you had to go through that,
Yeah.
or that had to have been a tough decision for you.
Hmm.
Be supportive. It takes me back to what we were talking about before the show started, and we've got this whole county of people and more spread out, rippled further than that, of people hurting because of the death of two of their officers and intentional wounding of other officers. And I just hope there's somebody out there that's holding them where they need to be held.
Correct.
I think that's what's really on my mind today. So, what do you think families often misunderstand about a veteran's internal experience?
I think that sorrow or the look on their battle buddies face, if they're downrange or even at a training accident here back in the States. And again, like that tattoo of those lost eyes, and just knowing that they never forget, never forget the looks. Every deployment is different, but every deployment comes with a story. Every training comes with a story. They are missing out on what is happening back home, and their significant other is holding down the fort, or kiddos are being born, or kiddos are going through life circumstances and age appropriate things that our service members are missing out on, and they truly miss out.
Yeah.
And they just need to be reminded how much they are loved and how much people care about them. Because otherwise we would have more than less than 1% join the military, period, end dot. If everyone in the world could at least serve in some capacity, we wouldn't be desperate for military at this time.
Yeah, it's definitely it's not a do we cut our military back. We can't afford to cut military back right now.
Mm.
The
No.
world is just too off kilter right now.
Mhm.
What topics do you feel are missing from public conversations about the veterans' mental health?
The financial means, um, I'm going to call it what it is. TRICARE is that's one system that I get so incredibly frustrated with, Kara, as a practitioner, and then seeing my military try to jump through hoops to get TRICARE to pay for services, or as a practitioner to get reimbursed. And that is the only insurance that active duty and some guard can utilize is TRICARE. So you're at their beck and call. Or well, you don't need that surgery, or you don't need those services, or you don't need those medication. And financially, sometimes they're at a place where they couldn't pay for it out of pocket, so they have to pick and choose their services. So the financial means, and again, that access to care, is what a lot of public population do not understand. And yes, we have so many amazing 501c3s that are coming up, we're veteran owned, because they have seen the holes in services. And there's so much more new treatment modalities that I'm so incredibly excited about, that as time and research has shown, that our veterans do not have to live with their PTS, do not have to live with their moral injury, that there is so many other modalities that we can do and or try, so that they can hopefully have a good night's sleep, be able to not go from 0 to 10, not have a fight, flight, or freeze reaction to everything, be able to enjoy life again, be able to enjoy their 5-year-old's birthday party again, that family members want to be around them because of modalities that are coming out.
I think one of the things that I know from my experience is that it took me a long time to be able to do it, but for me to be able to stand up in front of people when I'm speaking and say, "My name's Kara and I have PTSD," people tend to hear that word and they're just like freaked out. And I don't know if they immediately think I'm going to start like throwing a fit somewhere, or what's going to happen, because that couldn't be the furthest from the truth.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the things I would like for people to understand is that PTSD is treatable.
Mm-hmm.
You can live an absolutely normal life,
Yeah.
with the exception of the fact that you have to pay attention to your triggers
Yeah.
and your coping skills, which honestly a lot of people need to do, even without PTSD, and that they can live that life and have a good life beyond their service. So, what messages would you want veterans listening to this podcast to hear directly from you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Seek out services. Um, get creative with your services. Battle buddies and the American Legions and the VFWs. And I know so many of those are closing down because our younger population aren't joining them. And so be able to go to a place and participate with your battle buddies and be able to just sit and chat with other people who are like minded. You know, you don't have to explain yourself and you don't have to say with a label, you know, hi, my name is Kara, I have PTSD, is that they just get it and they don't care what branch of the service you served. You served. And even if you served one enlistment or one, whatever you've served, you have served your country and you wore a uniform. And to just, I say for the veterans, normalize mental health and normalize a healthy lifestyle. And what I mean by that too is physical fitness, nutrition, overall health, and just embrace that and take one of your people that may be kind of hiding out and isolating, take them on a walk, take them to the gym, take them to a nutrition class, start a cooking group, you know, all sorts of things instead of going down a rabbit hole with alcohol and meeting at a bar. And we're drinking our, you know, blues away, you know, with beer and alcohol and hard liquor. Do something healthy. Just get out. Get out.
That's a great message. And I think, like you mentioned, you shouldn't have to say, hi, my name's Karen, I have PTSD. And just so the audience knows this, and I think you already get this because we've talked before, I say that because I'm trying to normalize.
Yes.
I'm trying to break the stigma. I'm trying to show people that I can still be a normal person. I'm still a normal person. And just like if I had the flu and had to go to the doctor and get treatment, that's going to get better if I follow the regimen that the doctor gives me. And I think that that's where, we're trying to get to with this.
Yes. And I say too, Kara, like those invisible wounds, so many people, well, you have a handicap sticker? Well, you're walking fine. It's just those invisible wounds. And just some people have no filter and just be kind, you don't see it, but guess what? You can get a handicap sticker for exactly, love it. I love it. You can get a handicap sticker for a mental health. And so you don't have to see it, nor do they have to answer your question.
Correct. Angie, I really want to thank you for joining us here today. This has been fantastic, I think, to just have this conversation with you, and I hope that in the future maybe we'll be able to talk again about some things. I know we're getting ready to do we're getting ready to release a podcast on moral injury soon, and it'll be an interesting podcast because I think there's a lot of people that are confused right now about moral injury in relation to PTSD and what is moral injury and what's not moral injury. So we're going to be explaining that. But I am so happy that you decided to join us today, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Kara. It's an absolute pleasure.
Folks, I'd like to thank you for joining us also at the Superhuman Resilience Project. We're sponsored here today by W Energy and deemed fit for duty. We're also our parent company, Renewed Perspectives LLC. And we'll be back again next week with another exciting episode, and we hope you'll join us. If something today resonated with you, we really hope that you'll share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for being here, and until next time, remember, you were trained to be superhuman, but here you can just be human.